Hey Deckers, it's time for the monthly most played Steam Deck games by hours plays, which is released by Steam every month, but we turn it into a funky chart. This month with our own Steam Deck gaming companion stats, so let's dive in at number 20, Monster Hunter World, down 8 places, verified on the Steam Deck with around 88,000 players a day active still at the moment. You can see why this is storming it up the charts on the Steam Deck, although it is going to probably drop out next month. It is performing at a decent 40 to 50 frames per second, fairly solid on the Steam Deck OLED, but around the 27 to 28 watt mark, you're only going to be getting a couple of hours on this one. If you don't know about Monster Hunter World, take on the role of a hunter and slay ferocious monsters in a living, breathing ecosystem where you can use the landscape and its diverse inhabitants to get the upper hand. A new entry into the chart at number 19 of Ghost of Tsushima, Director's Cut. Storming into the charts considering this only joined mid-month, and it's easy to see why this one is going to be in there. I can see this being a lot higher next month with a decent 40 to 50 frames per second on low to medium settings, looking absolutely gorgeous on the OLED, especially with that HDR. You are going to be playing this one for a long time. If you haven't played it on the PlayStation already, or maybe you just want another run through, it's definitely worth it. As one of the last surviving members of his clan, Jin is resolved to do whatever it takes at any cost to protect his people and reclaim his home. He must set aside his traditions that have shaped him as a warrior to form a new path. In at 18, down 4 places, is Slay the Spire, with a perfect 60 frames per second on the LCD, and you're going to get easy 90 on the OLED, but really not taking a huge amount of wattage, so you're going to get a good 4 to 5 hours gameplay. Really nice and chill game, but you have to choose your cards wisely. Discover hundreds of cards to add to your deck with each attempt at climbing the spire. Select cards that work together efficiently and dispatch your foes to reach the top, with some funky sidelines as well. Whenever you embark on a journey on the spire, the layout differs every time. Another new entry diving in at number 17, running at a perfect 60 frames per second, up to 8,000 daily active players. That is capped at 60 even on the OLED unfortunately, but pulling around 13 watts, going to get a good 4 to 5 hours gameplay on the OLED quite happily. If you're into your puzzle platformers or platformers in general, then this will still pose a bit of a challenge and is not for the faint-hearted. Though I've been enjoying my time in this one, it does take a bit of getting used to. Hatch from your flower and spelunk your way through beautiful and sometimes haunting worlds in the Animal Well, a pixelated wonder rendered in intricate audio and visual detail. Down 5 places to number 16 is The Binding of Isaac Rebirth, and feel free to continue to take the mick out of my gameplay. I know I suck at these style games. The Binding of Isaac is a randomly generated action RPG shooter with heavy roguelike elements where you follow Isaac on his journey and finding bizarre treasures that will change his form, giving him superhuman abilities. Capped at 60 frames per second, you are going to be playing this one for up to 8 hours quite happily on the OLED, as it draws less than 7 watts, and with it changing every time, it certainly gives you a different challenge every time. Down 1 spot to number 15 is The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition. This runs incredibly well on the Steam Deck, especially on the OLED at up to 60 frames per second with our recommended settings, so do check those out. And released back in 2016, especially with all the mods, still pulling over 30,000 active players a day is absolutely phenomenal. But you'll only get around 2 to 3 hours gameplay on this one. Battle ancient dragons like you've never seen. As Dragonborn, learn their secrets and harness their power for yourself. Play any type of character you can imagine and do whatever you want. The legendary freedom of choice, storytelling and adventure of the Elder Scrolls is realised like never before. Also down 5 places, coming in at number 14 is Grand Theft Auto 5. With our latest settings, and we do need to update these, although it is in our performance roundup, it is very happily running at 60 to 80 frames per second on the OLED, and over 100,000 daily active players definitely keeps this one popular. With MSAA off, it certainly runs incredibly well on the deck. A young street hustler, a retired bank robber, and a terrifying psychopath find themselves entangled with some of the most frightening and deranged elements of the criminal underworld, government, and entertainment industry. They must pull off a series of dangerous heists to survive in a ruthless city where you can't trust anybody, including each other. Back up 4 places to number 13 is Vampire Survivors. Running fantastically well on the deck, you're going to get 60 frames per second quite happily with this one, and with the latest tweak it is running at around 15 to 20 watts still though, so you'll get about 3 to 4 hours gameplay. A minimalistic time survival game with roguelike elements. Hell is empty, the devils are here, and there's no place to run or hide. All you can do is survive as long as you can until death inevitably puts an end to your struggle. Down 4 places to number 12 is Cyberpunk 2077. Still struggling on the deck, especially around Dogtown, but you will be able to run at around 30 to 40 frames per second, depending on just how bad you want to make those graphics. And with over 30,000 daily active players still, it's definitely going to stay up there for a while, but you will want to tweak them, and hopefully we'll see some more patches on this soon. An open world action adventure RPG set in the fictional Night City, where you play as a cyberpunk mercenary wrapped up in a do or die fight for survival. Down 1 place to number 11 is Fallout 76, but with over 30,000 daily active players, even up to 60,000, it's definitely not going anywhere. Definitely still popular after the Fallout series has ended, and can't wait for series 2 of that, running at a decent 50 to 60 frames per second on the Steam Deck OLED, but pushing 23 watts, so you're only going to get 2 to 3 hours gameplay on this. Fallout 76 is set 25 years after the bombs fell. You and your fellow Vault Dwellers, chosen from the nation's best and brightness, emerge into a post-nuclear America on Reclamation Day. Play solo or join with friends as you explore, quest, build and triumph against the Wasteland's greatest threats. Dropping 5 places to number 10 and just about holding on, with daily active players between 78 and 125,000 a day. Helldivers 2 is still running fairly decent at 30 to 40 frames per second for the most part in the harder difficulties, but with our settings you are going to be able to enjoy it still. But again, pushing that 23 watts, so only a couple of hours to 3 hours max on the OLED. Enlist in the Helldivers and join the fight for freedom across a hostile galaxy in a fast, frantic and ferocious third-person shooter. Join the greatest military force the galaxy has ever seen and make this a safe and free place to live. After taking a couple of months break, diving back into the charts at number 9 is Diablo 4. Running fantastically on the deck even at high settings, getting a good 50 to 60 frames per second for the most part, and dipping into the 40s occasionally in really heavy fights. You're going to have a great time on the deck with this one, especially with the new seasons dropping. Putting around 20 to 22 watts, going to get about 3.5 to 4 hours gameplay. Diablo 4 is the endless battle between the high heavens and the burning hells as it rages on and chaos threatens to consume Sanctuary. With ceaseless demons to slaughter, countless abilities to master, nightmarish dungeons and legendary loot, this vast open world brings the promise of adventure and devastation. Only falling 1 place but still holding firm is Fallout New Vegas. Pushing around 20 to 40,000 daily active players still with its playable Steam Deck status, this runs at a very happy 80 to 90 frames per second on the OLED, and you're going to get a perfect capped 60 on the LCD as well. Pushing under 20 watts, you're going to get a good 3.5 to 4 hours gameplay on the OLED and about 2 to 3 hours on the LCD. As you battle your way across the heat-blasted Mojave Wasteland, the colossal Hoover Dam and neon-drenched Vegas Strip, you'll be introduced into a colourful cast of characters, power-hungry factions, special weapons, mutated creatures, and much, much more. Dropping yet another spot to number 7 is Elden Ring. Even with the latest version and patches, we are still pushing a good 30 to 40 frames per second on the OLED with our recommended settings, and I can see this gaining popularity again once the DLC drops, so definitely get in your practice on the deck. Only going to get around 2.5 to 3 hours battery life with this one though. Rise tarnished and be guided by grace to brandish the power of the Elden Ring and become an Elden Lord. In a vast world where open fields with a variety of situations and huge dungeons and complex 3-dimensional designs are all connected, as you explore, the joy of discovering the unknown, leading to a very high sense of accomplishment, or getting lost and not knowing what to do. Down 3 places but sticking into the top 10 firmly is Balatro, running at a perfect 90 frames per second on the OLED or 60 on the LCD. Pushing only 8 watts, you're going to be able to play this one for a good 8 hours on the OLED and a good 4 to 5 on the LCD. This is a poker roguelite where you combine valid poker hands with unique joker cards in order to create varied synergies and builds. Earn enough chips to beat the devious blinds, all while uncovering hidden bonus hands and decks as you progress. Down one spot but sticking in the top 5 is Baldur's Gate 3. Although this is verified, it really shouldn't be on the Steam Deck, but with over 100,000 daily active players still playing on the deck, clearly, it definitely is playable, but in the later stages, it really does only push 20 to 30 frames per second, so you are going to have to deal with that if you want to push through Act 3. Abducted, infected, and lost, you are turning into a monster, but as the corruption inside you grows, so does your power. That power will help you survive, but there will be a price to pay. And more than any ability, the bonds of trust that you will build with your party will be your greatest strength. Jumping up a massive 14 places, as kind of expected, is Hades. With Hades 2 being released in early access, it was no surprise to see this dive back up the list, running at a decent 60 frames per second on the LCD and up to 90 on the OLED. After a few rocky patches, it's definitely running a lot better now, and you're going to get a good 3 to 4 hours easily on this one, with it looking absolutely fantastic on the OLED. As the immortal prince of the underworld, you'll wield the powers and mythic weapons of Olympus to break free from the clutches of the god of death himself, while growing stronger and unraveling more of the story with each unique escape attempt. It's finally been knocked off the top spot, and jumping down to number 3 is Stardew Valley, running at a perfect 60 frames per second on the OLED or LCD until they patch it to get higher, running at a staggering 6 watts. You're going to be able to play this one for a good 8 to 10 hours on the OLED, so you can see why the playtime is extremely high on this one, especially as it's absolutely flawless. In Stardew Valley, you've inherited your grandfather's old farm plot. Armed with hand-me-down tools and a few coins, you set out to begin your new life, where you can live off the land and turn the overgrown fields into a thriving home. Holding firm at number 2 is Fallout 4. Still keeping its popularity from the series with between 50 and 167,000 daily active players, with our recommended settings running at a pretty solid 60 frames per second and looking absolutely gorgeous on the OLED, but pushing 23 watts again, so only going to get around 3 to 4 hours battery at best. In Fallout 4, you are the sole survivor of Vault 111, where you enter a world destroyed by nuclear war. Every second is a fight for survival, and every choice is yours, and only you can rebuild and determine the fate of the wasteland. As predicted, diving into number 1 as a new entry is Hades 2, running at a super solid 120 frames per second if you run it on an external monitor, so 90 on the OLED and 60 on the LCD, running at the highest settings and only drawing around 12 watts. So you're going to get a good 5 to 6 hours battery on the OLED and about 3 to 4 hours on the LCD. This time you're playing as the immortal princess of the underworld. You'll explore a bigger, deeper, mythic world, vanquishing the forces of the Titan of Time with the full might of Olympus behind you. In a sweeping story that continually unfolds through your every setback and accomplishment. That's the most played for May. Let us know in the comments below what your most played games have been. And if you like the new stats, you can check these out at any time via the SDG Companion App on the iOS and Android app stores. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest performance updates as well as these charts every month. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.